All right, so we'll go ahead and get started for today's presentation. Thank you for joining us for this installment of the Cape Perpetua Speaker Series. Today we're going to be hearing from Sheanna Steingass, and she's going to share with us about the satellite telemetry, behavior, and ecology of pinnipeds on the Oregon coast. And then we'll have a couple weekends off, and we'll pick it back up again on Saturday, February 27th, where we'll be hearing from Vicki Penwell, the director of the Cape Perpetual Visitor Center, and she's going to share with us an introduction to the new old growth forest. And a little bit about the KPerpetual Collaborative. My name is Tara Du Bois, and I'm the communications coordinator for the collaborative. And our vision is to foster conservation and collaboration within local communities for scientific exchange, awareness, stewardship from the land and sea in and around the Cape Perpetual Marine Reserve. And our three guiding principles are community engagement, leveraging resources, and engaging in partnerships. And as you can see at the bottom here, our founding partners include some federal agencies, state agencies, local nonprofits, as well as the Confederated Tribes of Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians. And our focus is around the Marine Reserve, the Cape Perpetual Marine Reserve, Oregon's largest of 5 marine reserves. And has, in addition with the marine protected areas, there are some form of protected waters stretching from Yachats to Florence. And this weekend's fun fact, there for 2 years, we did a visitor intercept survey at 5 different locations within that stretch. And we did this once a week. We rotated the times of day and the day of the week. We did this for 2 years, and one of the statistics that we found was that people visiting the area benefited, had health benefits, and mostly improved in mental health, reduced stress, and reduced anxiety. The mental health ranked higher in improvement than the physical health. So I like to say, get outside whenever you can, because it will help rejuvenate and refresh you. You can find more information on this visitor intercept survey if you visit the Cape Perpetua blog. And you'll have to scroll down a bit, or you can find the category for the visitor intercept survey and it will take you right there. And we also host a variety of community science projects in and around the area. As you can see here, some of them are seasonal and some of them are monthly. In addition to this speaker series, we also host a Young Scientist webinar series, the second Tuesday of the month, October through April. And our next one is coming up this Tuesday, February 9th. And you can find out information about all of our events and our speaker series on our website at KPerpetualCollaborative.org, and just click on the events tab and it'll take you to our calendar. And I always like to encourage you to visit us on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And with that, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Sheanna Steingass. She's the Marine Mammal Program Leader for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and an affiliate professor at OSU Marine Mammal Institute, courtesy faculty at OSU Department of Fisheries and Wildlife. Sheanna has been working with pinnipeds, seals, sea lions, and walrus from the Arctic to the Oregon and Washington coast since 2010. Her graduate work focused on energetics, behavior, and ecology of the Pacific harbor seals on the Oregon coast, including the Cape Perpetua area. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Sheanna. And as she brings up her presentation, I just want to let you know that we will be doing Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions that come up throughout, feel free to add them to the Q&A section that you have available kind of at the bottom of your screen or in the chat, and we will get to those at the end. And with that, Sheanna, it's all yours. Enjoy the presentation, everybody.
Yeah, and just to clarify, can you see my screen, Tara? Is that?
We sure can. Looks great.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm tickled that there are so many folks willing to join us on a Saturday morning, so thank you. My name is Sheanna Steingass, and I'm, as Tara kindly introduced me, I'm the the Marine Mammal Program Leader for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the science that I and my group have conducted in the Cape Perpetua area as well as just some points on why this area is so amazing and valuable, and kind of just some background on the pinniped species and marine mammals you might see around this area as well. So I hope by the end of this talk, you'll kind of feel the same way I do about Cape Perpetua. So a little bit about me. Tara did introduce me. I've been in Oregon since 2009, and I pretty much fell in love with the ocean in the Cape Perpetua area. I grew up in Wyoming. I was in veterinary medicine, and I had moved to Oregon because I was an alternate for the vet school here. But I started getting more involved with ecology and marine science and completely fell in love. I think one of my favorite spots to have first visited the ocean was actually down at Strawberry Hill and around Cape Perpetua. So I'm excited to present here today after all of that. I'm currently the Marine Mammal Program Leader for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. And my specialties involve the examination and study of pinnipeds, which are seals, sea lion, and walrus. And I've looked at everything from behavioral ecology, energetics, spatial habitat use, and biology and health of these animals. I'm currently working with the marine mammal team to conduct a number of studies, and that includes collaborative research and management of pinnipeds in Oregon with a really large number of national partners. We study the ecology and behavior of seals and sea lions as well, that inform population assessments and models on the federal level. And we also conduct some of this work using unmanned aerial vehicle systems as well as aerial survey programs. So that's all very cool work. We also work a lot with the stranding network here in Oregon to respond to calls of stranded animals and collect data and health information from those animals. And I apologize for the lighting. I'm getting increasingly tanner as we go here. I myself am somebody who absolutely loves the oceans, and from a very young age, that's been the case, even growing up in a non-coastal state. So I'm always thrilled to share that passion with people. If I were to give you guys one takeaway point from our talk, I think my favorite teaching point on pinnipeds are the differences between seals and sea lions. And there is a difference, and they are not always really apparent at first glance. But once you have some practiced eyes, it's really pretty easy to tell. So sea lions and fur seals are from the family Otariidae. And these animals have different evolutionary history really than what we call true seals or phocids. So sea lions here that you see on the coast most commonly are Steller and California sea lions. And the main identifying points for them are they're brown. They have little ear flaps on the sides of their ears. They're very vocal, and they have their hips composed in a fashion where they can stand upright and walk on land. Those are the guys that you would see in Newport, for example, on the sea lion docks. Seals, on the other hand, are, again, a completely different family of animals. And they are most commonly seen here in Oregon. You can see my slide background by the Pacific harbor seal. These are those little, I always call them like sausage puppies. They look like little dogs. And in fact, their scientific name means sea calf. They're kind of little round, really pulley guys. They aren't vocal. They're spotted, and they are much more awkward on land. So that's my teaching 2 cents for the day. So if any of you have attended some Cape Perpetua speaker series, you're probably somewhat familiar with the area. My focus on how special Cape Perpetua is has a lot to do with the coastal geography offshore and underwater. Unlike a lot of the continental shelf in Oregon, the area that we call Heceta Bank is this really incredible, shallow, productive area that extends about 55 kilometers off the coastline. You can see here in this box, it's kind of this elbow of continental shelf. And this has made it an incredibly important area for productivity. A lot of the continental shelf species that we love and depend on, like rockfish and bottomfish, as well as marine mammals. And another reason that this is a really important and really interesting area to study is that really long extension of continental shelf is subject to a lot of events like harmful algal blooms, coastal deoxygenation events that can occur in summer, or things like ocean warming. And for that reason, there's a lot of research going on in this area. Now, I was looking up Heceta Bank, kind of images and stuff yesterday, and I actually stumbled upon this short little wonderful video put on by Oregon State University. It includes many colleagues that I work with that are just wonderful people and wonderful researchers. And I would highly recommend that you look this up if you have the time. I got a little emotional watching it because it was just, Bill Piercy is a main component of it, and he's just an incredible researcher and just a really wonderful guy. Other folks from Oregon State are there, and I'd recommend, it's a nice little Saturday watch if you'd like to. So what I do in Oregon and have done for the last decade is study pinnipeds in their natural environment. So in order to study harbor seals, we have to be able to actually catch them and attach tracking devices. So this work was done in 2014 and 2015 as part of my doctoral work. And what we did was we captured a handful, about 24 harbor seals along 2 locations on the Oregon coast, in Alsea Bay and Netarts Bay. And we attached these satellite transmitters there, you can see on the left of their head. And the whole process is surprisingly kind of fast. We essentially hop out of boats and individually catch seals. And then we just kind of hold on to them long enough with a team so that we can use some really quick setting epoxy. It takes about a minute to attach the tag to the seal's head and let it cure, and then take some measurements, and then the seal is good to go. So you can see there that that device is about the size of a deck of cards, and it'll naturally fall off when the seal molts in a few months. And then, so after we after we put tags on them, we just let them go back to their lives. As you can see, that one was a little far from shore, but he made it just fine. So that was in Netarts Bay. So once these animals are in the water, that's when the really cool thing happens. And this tag transmits to a network of satellites every time it's out of the surface of the water. And so essentially what happens is it transmits an acoustic signal. It has 2 saltwater electrical ports on it, so it can actually sense an electrical connection that happens when the animal's in saltwater, because saltwater is a natural conductor of electricity. When that connection is broken, the tag assumes it's out of the water and it starts transmitting. The reason it does this is because if the tag transmitted continually, the battery would die super quickly. So anytime that animal pops its head out of the water long enough to get a satellite fix, that signal is triangulated through a network of satellites, and I get a location, which is really exciting. So I can log in any given day and know where these animals are at. When you get the data, however, it's a mess. It is a big mess because the satellites do their best to triangulate a location, but if it's a cloudy day or the animal wasn't at the surface very long, or maybe there was only one satellite that could calculate a fix, you get a lot of error. As you can see, it's really unlikely that seals were like all the way into terrestrial Oregon. But what's really cool, even with this raw data set, is if you think about that map of Heceta Bank I showed you, look at that distribution. In a lot of ways, these animals painted the continental shelf, and as part of that, they painted Heceta Bank as well. So each individual color you see on here is an individual animal. Now, once that raw data is there, I use a number of filters as well as corrective algorithms to get a better idea of what is actually happening. And so you can see there's some upriver points in Yaquina Bay, et cetera, that are still going on. But there it is again, there's Heceta Bank. And finally, when I correct for shoreline, that's another algorithm that filters out, terrestrial points. That's your finalized data set. And what was really exciting to see is a lot of these animals went straight out to the seamounts that can be found in the northwest area of Heceta Bank. And that shows me how important coastal bathymetry or depth is to how the ecosystem functions in the near shore. And I think it's just further evidence of how much time these animals spent in the Cape Perpetua area, meaning it's a very productive, very important area for the Oregon coast. And just a little recap of what I did find is that, so as I said, we captured animals in Netarts Bay and Alsea Bay. We got 57,000 total modeled locations over a total period of almost 2 years. So it was a lot of data. And what was really interesting is that the animals that we caught in Netarts Bay, which is in purple there, kind of just stuck around Netarts and Tillamook Bays. We did have one male that went down to Nestucca. But the animals down in Alsea Bay traveled a lot more. And I think some of that has to do with how dynamic and diverse that continental shelf area is down right next to their haul out site. In total, the animals traveled or had a home range or important area of over 3,000 square kilometers. And I mean, these guys really, they moved. The individual home range for animals was about 364 square kilometers. And the core area, or where the animal spent, approximately 90% of its time, was 29 kilometers squared. So this, I should probably mention, this is the first time that harbor seals have ever been tagged on the Oregon coast in a way that we can track them at sea and understand what they're actually doing. So this was really interesting to find because other seals in other areas barely move around. And so we just have this really dynamic coastline that supports a really rich diversity of behaviors. This is another little interesting one if you're familiar with the Oregon coast. I looked at the home range, which again is that really broad, that's the broad habitat use, and then the core area, which is really important habitat for these individuals. You can see that the bays are really important habitat. I actually have Oregon's marine reserves denoted by those black polygons. You can see Cape Perpetua is in there. And these guys both used a lot of bay areas, but they also used a lot of areas very close to either marine reserves or, coastal haul-out sites. But that being said, Cape Perpetua was really the only marine reserve where we had distinct habitat use. And that's an important point when we wonder if marine reserves act as predator refuges or places where there's increased predation. And from what I found, that really wasn't the case. And I think most importantly is that 99% of my locations were directly on the continental shelf. So these guys, as I said, painted the continental shelf of Oregon and really highlight how important that nearshore ecosystem is. And so I think my bottom line from this is just the idea that Heceta Bank and Cape Perpetua are important. They're beautiful and they're unique areas. And I encourage everyone to go out to visit them when they have a chance. Another area that's close to my heart around Cape Perpetua are the sea lion caves. And they are an amazing geological formation that are about 12 stories high, and they're just north of Florence. But these caves are 25 million years old, and they're an incredibly important habitat site for stellar sea lions. We have in the past had monitoring studies here to track individuals and look for entangled individuals. We don't have anything currently going, but that's planned for the near future because it's just such a unique and useful site. Fun fact is that it is also the largest sea cave in North America, right in our backyard. And to get there, you have to take a, not my favorite part, you take an elevator ride 200 feet down below ground level. And it seems like the caves are currently closed or having limitations due to COVID, But when they're open, I really encourage everyone to take a visit. Be aware that it does smell, and that's part of the joy of marine mammals is the smell that goes with it. It's invigorating, I guess. It's good for you. A little fun history of the sea lion caves. So the way that these were actually found were a local sea captain named William Cox. And full discretion, I did some searching and I'm 90% sure this is a photo of William Cox. It may be a different William Cox, I'm not sure, that settled in Oregon and was a sea captain. So maybe there was two, but I'm sure he had the same, fantastic beard and mustache and dress situation as this fellow. So he entered the caves on a calm day and was absolutely just blown away. But as I am very familiar with, conditions can change quickly and tides can change. And this poor guy ended up being stuck in here for several days. Nevertheless, I think he still came away with and said, oh my gosh, there's this amazing area. So as I said, this has been a really important study site on our end because of the animals that accumulate. And there's a photo of that elevator. I do not like small spaces, but I will do it just to see the sea lions. And this is in fact one of the best places to see stellar sea lions because they don't haul out on docks, etc., close to shore, usually like you would see California sea lions. So I highly encourage it. Some of the research that we're conducting as part of our program in Cape Perpetua include understanding just generally the coastal dynamics of pinnipeds in this area. And that's through aerial surveys, land-based surveys, as well as unmanned aerial systems. We work with the National Marine Mammal Lab to conduct stellar sea lion population monitoring and haul out counts. And these are all extremely important because that's what goes into the population models on the federal level. A lot of animals have been branded in the past through various projects and primarily life history studies to try and understand population demographics. So we have an entire database of these individuals that we have maintained for decades. We also study the diet of pinnipeds, and we do that either through scat analysis or stable isotope analysis. And we look at this in terms of seasons. And we also look at, as I said, I've looked at spatial use of Heceta bank by harbor seals, and that's a project that may continue in the future as well. So to kind of just wrap up, I thought it would be fun to take a little marine mammal tour of the Oregon coast, as well as some animals that you might see in Cape Perpetua. And a species that is has been an interest of mine for a long time are the Pacific harbor seals. There's about 10,000 of these animals in the state. And as far as we can tell through our population modeling, that seems to be fairly stable for the last 10 years or so. If you're interested in seeing harbor seals, I would highly recommend going to Alsea Bay in Waldport, Oregon. You can see during low tides, they will all be hauled out in big numbers under the bridge and then also off the bay shore spit as you look towards the ocean. Many of the animals that we put tags on from this area went straight to Heceta Bank and back on a daily basis, and they spent about 6 hours foraging, and then they would travel back and then go back and forth that way. Again, harbor seals don't bark, so that's a #1 flag for a seal, is they are not talkative, and they eat a lot of smaller fish, schooling fish like sand lance, flatfish, perch, smelt, and some cephalopods like octopi, etc. California sea lions are very abundant in this state. There's approximately 30,000 of these guys that you can find throughout the Oregon coast. They are the ones that you'll see on the Newport Bayfront. Interesting fact, almost all of the sea lions you see in Oregon, unless there's some weird navigational issue with them, are all males. Because females stick around Southern California and California breeding sites when they're younger, and then once they're of breeding age, they kind of spend their life pupping and nursing their pups in that area. So they don't travel north like the males do. So when I say these guys, that's actually literal, they're all males. They are the ones that you will hear barking, that really classic sea lion bark. And they like to haul out on piers, docks, and rocks near shore. They're very easy to see and to observe. And they eat a variety of open water species. They have a really diverse diet, but some of the main things they eat offshore are hake, black cod, mackerel, rockfish, or salmon. Now, stellar sea lions, like I mentioned at the sea lion caves, they're about twice as big as California sea lions. A really robust California sea lion male will be 800 pounds or so. Stellar sea lions can top a ton. They can top 2,000 pounds. And in a lot of cases, as you can see by this picture, they're referred to as sea bears because they really do just look like these big aquatic bears. There's about 2,000 of these in Oregon specifically, but there's about 40,000 of them along the Pacific coast that contribute to the breeding population. They have these really boxy heads, and a good way to spot them in the water is that they look very blonde or very light, whereas California sea lions look a lot darker. You can also see them if you go fishing, etc. They haul out on things like buoys or moorings and other structures at sea more often. They make these amazing deep grunting sounds, and I should have included a recording, but I highly encourage you, if you have time, to look up the noises these guys make. I've been close to several and even did a study at Oregon Zoo on acoustics, and the sound that they make when you're close to them, it really keys something up in you. I think your body is trying to tell you to get the heck away. So they eat a really wide variety of deeper pelagic fish, including some larger species. And these guys are offshore forages, so they're not going to be on the continental shelf as much. And just a couple other fun visitors you might see out there. And if you do see a sea otter, I would love to know, because we are trying to study these guys right now and understand how many we have coming through. We do not have an endemic population of sea otters right now on the coast. There's efforts to reintroduce them, but I get periodic reports as well as stranded sea otters every year, and it's really hard to put a pin in how many we actually have come through, just because of ambiguity of reporting, the difficulty to see them, and and sometimes I'll get a report of a river otter, etc., and it's hard to tell what's going on. So photos are great. Also, we love photos. And you may also see some northern fur seals, and these guys are little, they're otariids, just like sea lions. They have this really coarse fur. You can see them down by like Cape Arago and further south, but they're kind of offshore animals, but they are in Oregon. And that's kind of it, actually. I just wanted to run you through why I felt Cape Perpetua is so important, some of the work that we're doing, and again, some of my favorite species that you can see. And I hope that this presentation has really shown that while Cape Perpetua itself is a beautiful and incredible and amazing area on land, I think it's even more amazing offshore. And I'm really glad that I had the chance to talk to you all, and thank you, Tara, for inviting me. With that, I'll just bounce to just if anyone has questions for me, and you're welcome to email me questions, etc., on the email address listed.
That was a great presentation. I always love learning new things when I think I know things so much about something, and then it's like, wow, that is so cool. I love that. All right, so we did get some questions rolling in, so I'm just going to start ticking them off. Do the visitors to the sea lion cave disturb the sea lions, bring in extra lighting, noise, and other stress factors?
Ooh, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. I would say likely not. Now, I can't remember. It's been a while since I've been there, but there may be restrictions on flash photography. Another thing you'll notice when you visit is when you go down the elevator, you're on a ledge, and then, several dozen yards off is where all the animals are. So you're not like walking up to them or anything. And boy, is it loud in there. They are very loud animals between the ocean, and they are those species, they continually talk to each other, and that's how they size each other up, etc. Just like you or I, if we were close our eyes and hear somebody's voice, you could probably tell that I'm a very small female. They do that the same way, where they're constantly talking at each other to remind each other who's boss and who's bigger. So they don't really seem to notice visitors, and part of it has to do with the geography of the cave itself.
All right. And I do think that you're correct that there is no flash photography within the cave, if I remember. So that does help minimize that.
Yeah.
When doing your work in Neatarts, did you see sea lions in the bay? We hear vocalization often. Maybe it's more harbor seal grunting, or maybe we have sea lions visiting from the north. Thoughts?
Yeah, I would guess it was. So first off, no, we didn't see any, and actually, there were a fair amount of harbor seals there, but it's nothing like Waldport, etc. If you're hearing things, it's absolutely sea lions. Harbor seals, the only time they vocalize are the males. They do underwater breeding displays, which are these weird grunting sounds that you wouldn't hear. And then little baby calves can make kind of mewling. They kind of mew with their moms. Beyond that, they're very quiet little guys. So, and I guess I shouldn't say guys in this case because there are male and females. So probably a sea lion, a rogue sea lion out there.
And then somebody asked, do you have a link to the Heceta Bank film?
Yeah.
Audubon just did a webinar showing the film with a panel. And so I'm going to be sharing that link in the chat here for everybody. And then it may be available on YouTube too, if you do a search.
It is, that's where I found it.
Okay.
And it was just Heceta Bank. And I just typed in Heceta Bank video, I think, or something, and Perfect. It just popped right up, so.
Yeah, so just doing a general internet search too, you should be able to find it. But I added that link to the chat in case you want to hear a panel discussion on it too.
Cool.
Can you please walk us through the technique of tagging sea lions?
Yeah, and I'll walk you through the harbor seal technique. We haven't put tracking tags on sea lions for a while. We had planned to do it year before last. And then we had weather issues, and then COVID happened. So that's delayed. So no, it's really interesting catching harbor seals. They're very shy. And especially if you've already been there trying to catch harbor seals, they'll get even shyer. So it's kind of a funny system. So we have a couple boats. We have a number of researchers. Everyone's trained and qualified, as well as a number of veterinary staff and a veterinarian. And we have two boats, and we drive back and forth a few times to act like we're not doing anything. And that's actually part of the technique. And we use radios or hand signals, and we'll have a flat bottom boat like a Boston whaler, and we'll take a 90-degree turn into shore really quickly, and kind of on either side of the main haul out, or where we want to try to get animals. And so we rev up to shore and then pull the throttle back, so we kind of just gently glide in. And then we just have folks hop out with individual nets. And that way we're able to target animals that we want and not bug others. And so Waldport, when we worked, the females were pretty well segregated, and we ended up with a whole lot of males. And it was pretty funny to watch, because you can kind of tell visually males from females, but it's pretty difficult. But every animal we caught was a male, meaning to me, the females got the heck out of there. And then the males they tried to stick around and posture. And it was like, okay, well, I caught you now. So that's pretty much what you do. It's just a big hoop with a net on it. And then we have what kind of looks like one of those life flight boards, where we're able to get the animal in there and then put some straps around it and just have somebody hold the animal from behind. We put a towel over the animal's eyes so they don't have sand and stuff in their eyes. And then I'll take an air canister and blow the fur off to get the sand out. And then we stick the tag on, and then they're good to go. So it's kind of a wrangle, but it's all kind of a quick in and out procedure, because we don't want to disturb the haul out site.
Does the tag stay on there? Does the tag stay on there indefinitely?
No, so they're just glued on literally to the fur, and these guys molt annually. So depending on when they molt and when you put the tag on, so tags we put on in early spring stayed on till July, and then tags we put on in May stayed on again until July, so less data. But they're inert, so they're encased in rosin, so they just fall off and somebody either finds it or they don't. There are some systems where you can remotely detach them, but we haven't gotten to test those.
And do you know why stellar sea lions are listed under the ESA?
Yeah, and that's a really complex issue. So stellar sea lions are distributed continuously from like Kamchatka, which is Russia, all the way around the northeastern Pacific, all the way down to California. In the several decades ago, it was noted in the 80s, et cetera, that these animals on the western extent of the population, so ending kind of in the Aleutian Islands, were declining precipitously, and nobody knew why. And frankly, nobody knows why for sure now. And so because of that, that western distinct population segment was put on notice of, you know, what's going on. There was a lot of politics, a lot of stuff going on there, but that's how they ended up being listed. And then on our end, you know, a lot of it had to do with hunting, et cetera. But, you know, on our side, they're no longer listed. They're protected, but they're not listed. So it's that western population segment in Alaska.
And then do you know what seabirds take refuge in the sea lion cave, and do they nest there too?
Oh my gosh, I will answer that with, I wish I knew.
And I have some data on that too I can share.
Yes, please do. I'd love to learn.
So I do participate in a volunteer project, community science project through Audubon and US Fish and Wildlife during the summertime, and you can participate in this. And once it gets picked up again after COVID or things get readjusted, you can find this information on our events calendar. But you go once or twice a week, and you monitor the nests within the cave and around the cave and other areas as well. But in the cave specifically, we do see cormorants nesting, pelagic cormorants, the one that nests on the cliffs, pigeon guillemots, and rhinoceros auklets. So you'll see those actually nesting inside the cave. And that's about what I know. You can find out more information on the stats and all of that through Portland Audubon for that one.
Cool.
But it is a really fun project, watching the little chicks grow up. This question here, when she's walking on the beach between Seal Rock and Waldport, they see dark heads pop up and down in the surf. And are they seeing harbor seals or sea lions? And sometimes it appears they're surfing in the waves.
Yeah, it could be both. One of my very favorite things is I used to live in Waldport, and I walked the beach all the time. And the harbor seals there, it's funny because they have very poor vision out of the water. But I would take walks and I would just have harbor seals follow me for miles and bob up and down, and kind of, because they're very curious. They're always trying to figure out what you are. But I have folks that surf, you know, around those areas, and they will have California sea lions play with them. It's probably, if they're surfing in the waves, it's probably sea lions. But if it's just this little round head popping up at you, it's a harbor seal checking you out to see what's going on.
They are curious little creatures.
Yeah.
If you see a harbor seal calves by themselves on the beach, is that common? Is the mom watching?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I love this question, and I think this is an important one. It is common. So harbor seals are amazing little animals, even from the minute they're born. And so unlike a lot of other species of pinnipeds where the mom will just stay on shore for weeks or months nursing, which is really energetically amazing that they do that. Harbor seals are in between. And the pups can swim from birth. But that being said, they're not very good at it. And they're not very good at going out and looking for food. So it's totally common for moms to leave their pups for several hours or even over a day on the beach, and they'll tuck them away somewhere. And so the mom's probably not watching, but that mom is expecting that pup will be there when she comes back, because she's doing the very important job of getting calories for both of them. So the very best thing you can do if you see a harbor seal on the beach is just leave it. Be really careful to keep dogs away from it, kids away from it. Because it's a baby animal that just wants to wait for its mom, but they can have diseases that can be transmitted to you or your pets. If you do see baby harbor seals that you're worried about, or you see people harassing, please call the Stranding Network, and they can always get people out there. If it seems sick, call the Stranding Network. But yeah, it's totally common, and that's just how that's their life cycle for sure. But people, every year we have people throwing pups in the back of their Volkswagens or whatever and bringing them in. And that's really sad for the pup and for the mom.
Mm-hmm. Could the squid fishery be impacted by the diet of sea lions?
That's really, I can't answer that, but that's something that we're really watching, because the squid fishery itself has really taken off in the last couple of years. And pinnipeds do eat squid, like those market squid, etc. But that being said, there is a whole lot more squid than we've really ever seen. So that is to be continued. And that's something that the department is really watching as well.
Yeah. And it looks like here we have somebody joining us from the UK. Thank you for joining us. This is here in the UK, we have had a lot of problems and deaths of harbor seal pups with mouth infections. Have you experienced the same?
Ooh, no, I'm gonna have to look into that. And if there's any other information, I'd love to. I would love to know, because I'm aware of a lot of infectious disease, etc., but a lot of them are adrenal issues and cardiac issues, parasites, etc. I'll have to look into the mouth thing for sure. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. Do you see a change in the behavior when you're from the initial tagging to when they get used to it, like their dive behavior, etc.?
That's a really good question. And that is a big thing in the field that everyone's always asking, because how do you quantify change in behavior with a tagged animal if you have to tag the animal to quantify the change in behavior? That's actually an ongoing, I'm a member of an international society called the Biologging Society. And actually that's something that we're having really in-depth conversations about right now. There have been other studies beyond mine that use the same methods, and they didn't notice changes in behavior directly after or before, or sorry, directly after or much later in tagging. So the answer is no, but that doesn't mean that there isn't one. All we can do is minimize that impact. And they seem pretty darn resilient, because they'll go out foraging like 2 hours after getting tagged.
Okay.
Yep.
Then we have someone here. They would love to get into similar research in marine biology. They're 16 years old. And what would you recommend they do?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, email me and I would love to tell you more if you have any questions, because I grew up in Wyoming where there is no ocean and it's been a long path. So my advice is get as broad experience as you can and really get some hands-on experience. So I came from veterinary science. I actually did chemistry and geology for a while. I did seagrass ecology, and then got into marine mammal science because I really was into marine ecology, but I knew a lot about mammals from my veterinary background. So just know that there's no direct path, and every experience you can get in terms of ocean science or ocean education or anything, that's going to boost you up. And just find what you're interested in and passionate about, and get experiences as much as you can, and talk to a lot of people. And number one is people are going to tell you it's tough and you might get rejection, and you just keep going, because I can't even tell you the number of times I got rejected, but you just got to keep motoring on.
Yeah, totally. And that's true with so many things. Have you been able to carry out work since the start of COVID? And if not, how much data do you estimate was lost?
Yeah, ooh, that's a good question. No, not really. And it's been a challenge because, like I said, we had everything ready to do captures, etc., and we just couldn't. But we've been doing everything we can from a safe level. So we've been hiking into like Cascade Head and doing surveys. we've been doing those aerial, or not aerial, but unmanned aerial system surveys. And we have a whole backlog of data that we've also been working on. So we have lost some ground this year, but it's actually been really nice to catch up on all this stuff that we have collected. And I'm just really capitalizing on partnerships that we do have in terms of population health and all these samples that have been collected through in the past that we can now analyze. That's how everyone is right now. I think we're all just making the best of it.
And then can you mention the orca feeding on marine mammals, and how about the behavior of when the sea lions hold up their fins in the water? It looks like a raft of them are kind of floating high.
Yeah, so that's really cool. So killer whales, and I can say this, it's been written and I've always believed this, but they have distinct cultures. They have matrilineal, meaning like handed down from female to calf, distinct language and behaviors that they adhere to, and to the point where, you know, people can actually monitor these pods just by putting hydrophones in the water and listening for their specific language. So there's two forms of orcas that we see on the Oregon coast. One are the transient and one are the resident. We don't see the residents too much. They're up by the Columbia River and Puget Sound area, and they eat fish. The transient killer whale pods, however, which are also fairly well studied, they are marine mammal consumers. They hunt and eat marine mammals. You know, it's so interesting. I was there one day when the transients came into Yaquina Bay. It's really hard to catch because you hear about it and then you like drop everything and run over there.
So fast.
Yeah, and actually it was the day I found out I think I got this job. And I ran over there and we were watching from the bayfront, and they came into the bay and all the sea lions went completely silent. And there was one guy that kept barking and they all looked at him like, dude, what are you doing? So yeah, they will hunt marine mammals and harbor seals as well. So yeah, I don't know what else to say, but it's really cool because there are distinct populations that do totally different things.
And then how about when the sea lions put their fins in the air? What are they, what does that mean when they do that?
Yeah, so we call that jug handling. I didn't come up with the term. Yeah, and there's two reasons. One is it's a really easy way to rest and keep their head out of the water so they can kind of sleep on the water. And the other thing that it does is it helps them thermoregulate. So if it's really, you know, if they're in the water and resting, I'm sure you notice like when you sleep, you wake up and you're way colder than you were. If they can stick their fin out of the water and at least have one part of their body that isn't having all the heat sucked out of them from water, it helps them kind of regulate their body temperature. At least that's what we all assume, and we all have like, you know, come to the conclusion of, but I've never been able to ask a sea lion, so.
What was the term again?
Jug handling.
Jug handling, okay, I have to try to remember that because I get that question a lot. And then this is a question that I hear regularly, Heceta or Heceta?
Okay, this is, and I'm from Wyoming. So Tara, you can correct me. I always say, this is the weirdest thing, I always say Heceta for the Heceta Bank, but then when I think of Heceta Head Lighthouse, I call it Heceta. So I don't know.
I find myself doing the same thing. Actually, I say it both. And sometimes even in conversation, if I'm talking to like a researcher who I feel knows way more than I do, and they say it a certain way, then I just follow what they say in that conversation. Yeah. But I have found the same thing when I hear them talking about underneath the water, I say Heceta, and then Heceta Head. So I end up saying it both. I've also heard it can go either way, and it depends on kind of where you heard it from, the origin. Two different origins or something like that. I'm not 100% certain, but yeah. I think both are correct, just depending on a variety of things. Not one isn't wrong. But yeah, that is hilarious. There's a couple questions actually from a couple different people on that.
Oh, funny. Yeah.
Are the sea lions protected in Oregon? Are they not being killed in order to save salmon?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's such a, oh my gosh, it's like a presentation on its own. It's a really complex issue because all marine mammals are federally managed under the MMPA, which is the Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972. That being said, in the 90s and since then, there's been certain allotments to manage certain species that are not endangered. So that's the clarifying point. Protected means that they're protected under a federal law, regardless of population, et cetera. So the MMPA is a blanket author or a blanket, yeah, I mean, it's an act that protects all marine mammals. And so prior to even a few decades ago, we couldn't even conduct scientific research on marine mammals. That's how heavy it was. Then in the 90s, there were some amendments after populations started to rebound that allowed for hunting by Alaska Native communities, as well as research. And then what happened in 2008, and since then are several really specific amendments to the MMPA, where a number of states, as well as tribes, have the authority to manage sea lions in very specific scenarios at very specific numbers. And all of that has to be within the constraint that any of the numbers taken cannot affect the population in any way. And so that's what's happening, and that's really specific to an area of just the Columbia River for a set number of animals that have kind of just started hanging out there. And there's been, prior to management, there were even times when these animals were transported as far as California and came right back. So everything was kind of tried. Some were taken to Newport and swam like 200 miles within 3 days to get back. And so there's actually been 15 placed in zoos and aquaria, which is really cool. And that's the first option. But yeah, so that's the long and short answer is yes, there is management going on, but it's within a very thin constraint line.
Yeah. And then a couple questions here on the migration patterns of marine mammals, and I think even particular to sea lions. This question in particular, sometimes sea lions are in the Newport Harbor and then they all disappear. You know, where do they go and what makes them decide to return to Newport?
Yeah, they go to find the ladies, and they do this. They do this in the summer, and they will go down to California. And that is right at and I was so lucky to go down to the Channel Islands and see this happen. The males that are strong enough or think they're strong enough go down to the Channel Islands and Southern California breeding sites because that's right when the females are having pups. And so the males hold up, it's this massive chaos. The males hold harems, which are groups of females and their pups, and kind of keep order. And then they also try to find a lady to pass on their genetic material. And then after a couple months of that, when everything's kind of settled down, they cook back up north so they can just spend the rest of their time kind of hanging out with the guys. And so that is specifically for California sea lions. They will just all go because that's what they do. They're down in California. Yep.
And then do harbor seals migrate at all?
No, well, that's a broad answer. In some populations globally, they have been shown, but harbor seals are only non-migrating year-round present pinniped in Oregon. So they will move seasonally, but it's not migration. They just kind of go where the food is every once in a while.
Have you done any research to check for PCBs in the area and impact on animals?
Yes, and that's exciting because I'm doing that research right now, and we just got our first results. So we are looking at that, and I wish I could tell you more about the results, but we literally got them 3 days ago. But we're actually studying an entire suite of toxins for a variety of species, and we're doing that in conjunction with some Oregon State University, UCLA, as well as NOAA. So keep an eye out for that because that's going to be, I'm sure we'll be sharing that data.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then someone else here threw up a comment too that Yaquina Head is also a good place to see harbor seals,
Good.
just right off the offshore rocks there at Quarry Cove. So
Great
if you're
point.
in that area, definitely check that spot out. Let me see here. Okay, do the males bring their ladies back to Newport? Are all the California sea lions in Newport Harbor males? And it looks like there are some smaller sea lions.
Yeah, so no, they don't. The ladies have no interest in coming up here. Yeah, so it's all boys, and we have had some super young guys, super young animals that we've been seeing in Newport as well. And we're still trying to puzzle that out because that's fairly new to see just such small animals. I don't know what the other, yeah, so every sea lion you see in Newport is a male.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see seals and sea lions accidentally eat plastic trash in bags?
Yeah, that's a good question. There haven't been a lot of strandings because of that. I would say the bigger problem, just like somebody brought up with PCBs, et cetera, is those derivatives and runoff and toxins impact, and then they work their way through the food system, including microplastics, et cetera, and really accumulate in these upper trophic level predators like marine mammals. And so the bigger problem, we haven't seen a lot of plastic ingestion, but the bigger problem, we've seen a lot of these accumulate in animals, and it does ultimately affect their immune system to some degree. We don't really know if it affects them in a way that it has a population or really heavy individual implication, but that's something we're looking into right now, including propensity to get cancer, et cetera.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's also a comment here about how sea lions will travel down the Columbia to the Willamette and south to Willamette Falls at Oregon City, and then sometimes up Clackamas River. So it looks like they can journey inland a bit too.
Yeah, and those are the sea lions. That is that kind of management area that I spoke about earlier. And so, yeah, there are animals that will swim 100+ miles up the Columbia River, other areas. And I think that really shows just how much these guys can move around. Yeah, if you would have told me when I was in Wyoming that there were sea lions in like kind of downtown Portland, I would never have believed you, but there are.
Yeah. And that wraps our questions. We always get some really great questions from the audience, and no disappointment in that today. Thank you all for interacting with us. And Shay, thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it. Such great information to take out there with our next adventures, along the Oregon coast, and be able to see what we can see after learning. So I really appreciate it. I hope everybody can join us at our next installment, a couple weeks off, and join us again on February 27th. And this series will run through the end of March. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Shay, you have a wonderful weekend, and I guess enjoy it. I'm looking outside now and I'm seeing the wind pick up here, but it's dry.
I've got sun behind me. It's very exciting.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tara, so much.
Yeah, wherever you are, have a good weekend. See you all later. Bye-bye.